everybody. Once again, I am doing a Voices of Scope interview, basically talking with interesting people doing interesting work in the world of clinical research. Today, I have Dr. Otis Johnson, whom many of you know from years past at Scope. Otis, you've been at Syneos, you've been at Merck, you have a lot of history, Clario, doing interesting things, but you have a new company. It's your company, Vantix Operations, Vantix Operations. So congrats, Otis. Good to see you.
Yes, thank you, Micah. Good to be on your show again.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So so you and I have run panels together. We've had discussions around diversity, equity, and inclusion in clinical trials, populations. You did some really big work for Clario there as well. But this is bigger. We're talking about ESG, which is a level above just DEI, right? This is a bigger thing. Europe's a little ahead of us. So I think we were going to talk about like what is the practical business case, for ESG and sustainability in clinical trials. Okay, so that's the framing. So, really big question, but I want to start with why should sponsors care about ESG?
So sponsors should care about ESG because ESG represents a risk to their business. So they want to make sure that they're working with suppliers that are responsible, that have good labor practices, good governance, good environmental practices. Because if their suppliers are not compliant in those ways, it will show up as risk. So risk in terms of the quality of the deliverables they get, and just suppliers may just not be able to deliver. And then you end up with delays, and we cannot have any more delays
Yeah,
in getting these medications to patients because
right.
at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. So it's about business risk.
Yeah, it is. I have a second question there too. We last week we talked and we were talking about, everywhere's different. In the UK, the government itself is one of the biggest buyers. So they can actually place pressure on pharma to say these are our requirements. So it starts tying into reimbursement as well. In the US, similar story, different details. So I guess I have a follow-up question, but let's go to the other side first, then I'll come back. So we talked about the sponsors and there's a business risk. Is it similar for the suppliers? Why should the suppliers care about ESG?
So I think it's even more critical for the suppliers. And I'll just use a quick example to tell you why it matters. So in my last organization, we were getting questions from suppliers about ESG compliance. And in some cases, the questions were coming from our largest customers, and they represented a direct risk to revenue. So we had to get ESG compliance right. Otherwise, we would lose out on opportunities. So I was actually placed in the hot seat at one point to take on the role of Chief Sustainability
I
Officer.
remember. Yeah.
Yes, to fix that problem. And with my first attempt, we only saw incremental increases in our ESG scores.
Hmm.
So I took a more in-depth approach and figured out how to solve those problems so that we would no longer be missing out on opportunities because of our ESG compliance. And it made a huge difference. Company got recognition and became a leader in the ESG space.
Right. So basically also it seems like a no-brainer, right? This is where if you're a supplier, you better have your ducks in a row if you want to be even considered. Something you had said too, I forgot the term you used, where sometimes a supplier may be rejected quietly. What does that mean? Tell me what you mean by that.
Yes. So sponsors and large CROs, they have a scorecard that they use internally. And you may not see how you're being scored on ESG, but they use that scorecard to determine even who gets to see that RFP. So you get excluded even before you get an
Before.
opportunity to bid on it. So the thing to avoid getting excluded is to make sure that your ESG compliance is in order ahead of time so you don't get quietly excluded and you get to bid on those opportunities that you know you can deliver on.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that explanation. So, okay, so going back to the world of scope, where we're really, there's all these people are there and everybody's sharing best practices. And a lot of it comes down to like people giving each other advice. And that's great, right? Wisdom of the crowds. So in this case, you can't do it all. I mean, this is what Vantix Operations is doing. But what is some practical advice? What are some practical things suppliers can do to meet ESG compliance requirements that are obviously in place and, like you said, are leading to them missing out on possible contracts, right?
Yeah, so the good news there, Micah, is that most of the ESG compliance requirements are driven by the pharmaceutical supply chain initiatives, and there are some commonalities there. So some of the things that you should be thinking about is participating in the EcoVadis survey.
Okay.
It's considered one of the gold standards, and it covers four key areas like labor and human rights, environment, sustainable procurement, and ethics. Those are things that you already should be doing anyway. So
Right.
it's a good framework. You should participate in the carbon disclosure program to track your greenhouse gas emissions. And they expect you to participate in the Science Based Target Initiative as well, which also looks at your greenhouse gas emissions. So if you start there, you will get a head start on complying with most of the sponsors and CROs' requirements around ESG and sustainability.
Yeah. It's good advice. And it's not rocket science in the sense where, you know, there's still a huge need out there for small providers, large providers, all different types. And it's competitive, but to actually get that quiet rejection because you haven't gotten this in place, it's just a shame, right? It seems so evident. All right, this is good. Who are the last question? I know we're out of time. When you're at Scope and you're hanging out and people are talking about this, some people at Scope have this job title, sustainability, chief sustainability officer. They have these titles, but who are the people that you find you're talking with about this and with whom it resonates because it's going to be their problem inside of their organization. What do they look like?
Yeah, no, that's true. And I'm going to answer your question in a minute. But one thing I'll say is that when it comes to sustainability and ESG, what we find when we talk to potential clients is that they already have something in place. It just
Okay.
needs to be packaged appropriately to meet the standards. So when you go to scope, you should seek out, like you said, Micah, those with the sustainability in their title. It's also important to seek out those with procurement in their title or
Okay.
vendor management. They would know what the requirements are and they can tell you. And I think this is something that you should do proactively so that you can get your ESG compliance in order and not get quietly rejected.
Yeah. Okay. Good, good, good. Hey, good to see you, Otis. Congratulations on Vantix operations, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
All right. Sounds good, Micah. Looking forward to it.
All right, man. See you.
Bye.
Bye.